Welcome back to another PowerPoint VBA Python, whatever you want to call it, combination video. I actually had a topic requested for somebody who's on my Patreon who was asking about working with slide objects, excuse me, and then also working with some tags and comments and stuff like that. So I thought, hey, I'm sure a lot of other people have a certain need for PowerPoint VBA from Python. So I thought, why not do a video on it? Let's make it easy on ourselves. So what we're going to do in this video is I have a pre-built presentation that's basically just one of the template ones you can get off of Microsoft. And basically, I really like this one just because there's a lot of different objects inside of it. And so I'm not going to talk about every single object, but to give you at least a general idea of like how do we go about getting certain collections on a particular slide. In this particular video, I do want to talk about 3D model objects because I think they're kind of neat. And also, who doesn't like a T-Rex, right? So I thought that was kind of neat. And then we're also going to talk about slide ranges a little bit as well. And then we're going to talk about tags and comments. So with that being said, let's get started. So first things first is we are going to import our win32com.client library. This is basically our mechanism to work with COM objects from Python. Technically, when you're working with the VBA object model, you are really working with COM objects behind the scenes. That's why win32com can actually plug into other applications, not just Office applications. So as long as it's a COM object, win32com should be able to access it. Now, inside the win32com, we can get something called the active object. What that means is that from a COM object perspective, if you already have an existing COM object there, you can get that existing object using win32com. So for example, get the active instance of PowerPoint. Well, what would that all look like? Well, we want to create a reference to the PowerPoint application. So what we're going to do is create a new variable we'll call ppt app. This is going to equal win32com.client. And then that client module has something called getActiveObject method. And so you can see kind of right here that with this particular one, it takes, a class object basically as its argument, but really what it's taking is the program ID. And so the program ID is what we would call the user-friendly or human-readable ID. And really all that is for PowerPoint is PowerPoint.application. So again, if I want the active instance, I can just pass through the program ID. Now, what this will return is the active instance of PowerPoint. Now, technically, by default, it's going to give us late binding. And then late binding as well. In this case, it's actually a little bit different. But basically, by default, if I don't specify it, it's going to go with the default binding option that's available. Most time, it's going to be late binding unless you've ever run generate cache, which basically means generate some Python scripts that are used to mimic early binding inside of Python. So now that we have our application, we're going to get the active presentation. So get the active presentation. And so we'll put this in a new variable. We'll call it ppt presentation. And then for this one, we'll go into our application object and we'll grab the active presentation using the active presentation property that belongs to our application object. This also returns an object. So a property can return an object. So if I print out this PPT presentation, let's see what we get. You can notice it's a COM object. So again, we have an object. Properties can return objects. Now, inside of a presentation, this one right here, we have slides, right? If I want to think about the hierarchy behind PowerPoint, we start at the application, we go to the presentation, and then from there, normally we go to slides, right? So a slide can contain multiple different objects. If I want to think about a group of slides, I talk about a slide collection. To be more specific, it's slides with an S at the end. So if it's S at the end, normally it refers to a collection. So in this case, if I want all the slides inside my presentation, I can grab the slides collection. Now in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count how many slides I have. Count the number of slides I have. Print. And then from here, I'm going to say there are slides in my presentation. And then I'll do my format. And then I'm going to do my PPT presentation. And then I'm going to do my slides property, which returns my slides collection. And then I'm going to call the count property, which returns the number of items in that collection. So I can see there are 10 slides in my presentation. Looks good to me. My throat all day, I'm telling you. It's like dry, but it's better. So I think it's a good thing. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a slide range. The way I like to think about a slide range is that you can select multiple slides at once, and they don't have to be in consecutive order. So for example, say I select slide 2, then slide 4, then slide 1. I now have a slide range, which is made up of 3 different slide objects: slide 1, slide 2, and slide 4. So if I want to mimic this behavior in Python, we can create a slide range object. So create a slide range object. And so we'll call this PPT slide range. This will equal my PPT presentation. I will go into my slides collection, and it has a range method. Inside that range method, I can pass through a list where I specify the slide index starting at 1, and I'll do 1, 4, and 6. And then from here, I'll have a slide range collection. And so I'll print PPT slide range. Now, it's not going to really tell us much, but it's still a COM object, and it still represents a range object. So pretty neat, right? Now I can also count the number of slides in my slide range. I should see a different number given the fact that I've only selected a few ones in my slide range. And then I'll do my PPT slide range, and then I can call the count property. And so I can see there are 3. So that's good. Now, if you want to mimic, in a sense, doing certain things to these objects, you can mimic it, but be forewarned, sometimes you can't do everything. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but generally speaking, a simple operation you can do is you can select multiple slides at once. So for example, select the slides. And so I'll say PPT slide range dot select, and then I should see some of this highlight. So it might be kind of hard to see, but this one's currently selected, that one's currently selected, and that one's currently selected. So that's working with a slide range object. Now I am going to comment this out just so that way we don't run it again. And then from here, we're now going to loop through each slide. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to say for PPT slide in PPT presentation dot slides. Well, what do I want to do? Well, I already have some kind of information typed out, and instead of typing a million different things at once, I'll just kind of explain what is going on. I'm going to move this over here. So slides tend to have multiple collections associated with them, and there are different attributes that are usually associated with a slide. So for example, every slide has an index. The index basically determines the position in which it is. Additionally, each slide has a shapes collection. A shapes collection represents all the shapes on that slide. There can also, I'm going to delete that really quick. There are also names. So you can give your slide individual names. Most time people don't do that, but you do have that capability. So that would be denoted by the name property. Additionally, we have a layout property. So that defines the layout of the slide. There are many different types of slide layouts, but generally speaking, you're going to work with title and content layouts. Additionally, slides can have hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are their own unique objects in the object model. So if you have hyperlinks, you can have a collection of hyperlinks that exist on a single slide. So for example, if I want to work with all the hyperlinks inside my particular slide, I would go to the hyperlinks collection, and then I could do things like count it. I could iterate over those hyperlinks and check the URLs maybe. Lots of different things you could do. Additionally, slides can have comments. Comments are their own objects inside the object model. So if we have multiple comments, they exist in the comments collection. Now, we'll be working with comments a little bit, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they are a collection just like we've worked with before. Additionally, we have tags. Tags are basically what they are is they're like kind of like unique identifiers that you don't necessarily see in the presentation, but behind the scenes they exist. So it's a way of associating multiple slides together by giving them some type of common attribute, right? So tags, you guessed it, are their own objects inside the object model. So we can think of multiple tags as a collection. And then if we want to work with a particular tag, then we can work with the methods and properties. So generally speaking, slides have lots of different collections on them. They can have picture collections, they can have table collections, they can have chart collections. Pretty much if you see something on here, they probably exist on a slide level. So there's a lot there, and each one of those objects can have their own unique properties and methods. So it's unfortunate, but I could never go through every single one of them in a single video because there's just so many, and each one of them can have their own unique properties and methods. So at this point, really what I'm trying to drive home is slides have a lot of collections on them. So normally speaking, if you're going to have to work with a particular object in PowerPoint VBA, but doing it from Python, you're going to normally go through the slide. 90% of the time, you're going to go through the slide. Once you're at the slide, then it's identifying what collection do you want to work with. Once you've identified that collection, then usually it's some type of iteration process that you're kind of approaching when it comes to working with that collection. So all this is going to do is it's just going to print out some attributes about my particular slides and print them out in the terminal. Now, it might be a little hard to kind of see down here, but we can see that it's giving me the shape count, the index, it's telling me the name, the layout. Because we are using Python, it's usually, well, and actually it's not even Python. Even if you did this in VBA, it comes back as enumeration. So it doesn't tell you a lot, but you can always cross-reference the documentation to say, hey, I see 32. What does that mean from PowerPoint? Well, if I go to PowerPoint VBA, then what I'll find is there will be, usually it's down at the bottom, I think. I think it's, maybe it's this one. I can never remember where I put it. Oh, enumerations, here we go. So you can actually look at the enumerations. So they're usually down at the bottom. And for example, if I was looking at slide layout, I'd go, okay, PP slide layout. Okay, so I'll go here. Okay, return to 32. Okay, so that represents custom layout. Okay, so now I know. So generally speaking, when you're working with Python with the VBA object model, normally you're going to have the documentation side by side because I don't know about you, I don't remember all the enumerations. So if I'm looking for a particular object, normally I'm going to have to look at the documentation, see, okay, I'm looking for a text, for example. What does that look like from the enumeration perspective? So that way I can write the code the way I need to. Okay, so now that we've done that, we are going to work with the shapes collection, right? So we'll just keep it simple for right now. Ooh, not like that. We're going to loop through each shape inside each slide. So it's a lot, but we're going to actually focus on the type of shape that we're going to be working with. So we're going to say PPT shape in PPT slide dot shapes. So in the shapes collection, what do you want to do? So what I'm going to ask is I'm going to say, okay, I got a shape. I know the shape has a type property. If that type property has an enumeration value of 30, then continue. Alex, what in the heck does 30 mean? Well, let me go back to the documentation. Where does they put it? I can never remember where they put this one. It's a little bit of a weird one because I feel like it's shape type. PP shape type, there we go. So for 30 represents, wherever it is this not the one? Let me just start right up from the front. So if I go to properties and then I go to type, oh, so it should be here. Which one am I missing then? Well, I saw it this afternoon. I know I'm not going crazy. I wouldn't have known to put 30. Let me check something really quick. Where is it? There it is. 3D format. Model 3D. Type. Oh, there it is, 3D. So this returns, okay. And then turns a shape object. I know it's here because I remember I saw it here. Auto shape type. Maybe that was what it was. .3D format. Okay, maybe I'm going mad. I mean, that's completely possible, but I swear to God, I saw 30 on here somewhere. Okay, well, I guess for the time being, just take my blind faith on it because I can't seem to find it now. But basically, type 30 is it's a 3D shape, basically. So in that case, what we can do is then we'll just print out the PPT shape. So really all I'm saying is loop through each shape in each slide. And then if it's a 3D model one, then just print it out as of right now. I swear I saw. Oh, and then what I'm going to do just to kind of make things easy on us is just comment that out for the time being. Okay, so it did return a shape. And so this represents a 3D shape model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing some more advanced stuff, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, you know what? This is a special slide. It's got a 3D shape on it. I want to add some tags. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list of tuples. I'm going to say for each tag in that list of tuples. So I'll just say a list, and then I actually have some tags already ready to go. So I'll just use that. And then here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list. That list is just simply a list of tuples. And then I'm going to say, okay, loop through each tuple in that list. I'm going to do PPT slide. And then I'm going to do tags. So the tags collection, that has an add method. And that add method requires 2 arguments. The first one is the name. Well, the name in this case is just the first element of that tuple. So I'll say take my tag and grab the 0 index, the first index really. And then additionally, there has to be a value associated with it. That value will be the second element, or the index of 1 from Python's eyes. So what this is going to do is it's going to add a new tag to our slide, and it's going to have these 3 tags where each tag has a name and then each tag has a value. So in this case, slide type, slide 3D, slide object, T-Rex, object status, rotated. So once I've done that, I'm going to also print out the number of tags that we now have on this particular slide. So I'll say print. This slide has, has blank tags. And then I'm going to do dot format, and then I'm going to do ppt slide dot tags dot count. If the shape is a 3D shape, continue. And then add some tags to the slide. So nothing too crazy. And then from here, hold on one sec. Okay, perfect. And then add the tag. So once I've added the tags and I've counted them, what else can we do? Well, let's start working with this 3D shape and see if we can do certain things to it. Now, in this case, my shape is actually my little T-Rex. And so this is kind of a neat shape because with this, you can rotate it and all that kind of fun stuff. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, I want to work with that 3D shape. So because we're working with a shape that we know the type of, we know which property to call. So here, grab the model 3D property. This returns a model 3D format object. So shape 3D equals ppt shape, and then it's model 3D. And then that particular object has some interesting characteristics about it. So if I go to the 3D format object, you'll notice that there's a bunch of different properties with it. So there's extrusion color, field of view, parent, perspective, rotation, application, bevel bottom insert, all sorts of different things that you can basically access about that particular object. Now, we're not going to do anything fancy, but I do want to show you kind of how to access some of those properties. So for example, print out the field of view. So we'll do print the field of view is, and then we'll do format, and then we'll do shape 3D field of view. And then from here, this will print it out for us ideally. So now we have our slide tags, and now we have our field of view, which is 45 degrees. So it ranges, I think, from 0 to 360. Now what we can do is we can also increment the rotation. So for example, if I want to rotate my object a very specific amount, I can do that. So rotate the shape along the x-axis. And so from here, we'll do shape 3D, increment rotation x, and I'm gonna do like 50 degrees. So this ranges from 0 to 360. And so you can see that my shape has now been rotated, my little T-Rex. It's just kind of it's kind of sad. Aw. It's kind of upsetting. He doesn't look as pretty now, right? Okay, and then from here, what are we gonna do? Well, you normally wouldn't do it like this, but this is just me trying to add some variety and showing you how to work with different objects. But let's add all of our tags to like a comment, for example, right? So that was actually a requested thing about this video, so I wanted to make sure I included it. And it's a little bit strange, to be honest. It's actually not intuitive. So basically, to loop through tags, you have to do it using a range of numbers. So we're going to say for blank in range, and then 1 PPT slide. We're going to do tags, and then we're going to do count. Most time people ask, like, why would you do underscore? It's kind of just like more, if you're reading this, it's just basically saying like, I don't care what you do with it. It just kind of needs to be there. And then from here, what I can do is I can print out the slide name. So I can do PPT slide and then tags and then name. So each tag has a name property, but I have to pass through the index of that tag. So this is where I got kind of tripped up because I didn't realize like, oh, strange. So I can't just treat it like a normal collection. I have to actually go into the name collection, really, if you think about it, and then get that particular name based on the index. So it's definitely a little bit different, but you can still obviously get it, as you can tell. So they're still there. It's just kind of an awkward way to kind of go about, I would say, doing it, but that's just kind of my opinion. So here, loop through each tag and print the name. Finally, what we're going to do is we're going to create a list of tags, a list of tuples, really. Create a tags list. And so we'll say tags list equals, bam, it's going to be a string. It's going to be PPT slide tags name, and then that, and then it's going to be also PPT slide dot tags, and then it's going to be the value. So there's also a value property. So if you want to kind of relate to it, that's your name, that's your value. That's literally all I'm doing, is I'm just getting the name and the value again. And then from here, I can really just kind of copy this because I'm using list comprehension at this point, and I'll just put it in the end. And just like that, we should have a tags list. So we'll print our tags list. What did I do wrong? Oh, I forgot to wrap it in a tuple. That's why. My apologies. Okay, perfect. So now it's like a list of tuple strings, as awkward as that sounds. Then from here, what are we going to do? Well, let's add a comment that contains those particular tags. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new comment object, and we'll say PPT slide. We'll go into the comments collection. Excuse me. I'm going to add, I'm going to specify the left. So this is how far in from the left of the slide do you want to come in. We'll just say 12 points. Then from the top, how far down do you want to come from the top in points? That's 12 again. And then we're going to do author. Well, that's just me. And then we have author initials. That's AR. I'm going to indent this in a little bit. And then we have the text. I'm going to indent this just to make it consistent. And then from here, I'm going to do text equals, and I'm going to do dot join, and then I'm going to take that tags list and have that be my text. So whenever I add a comment, I need basically 5 arguments at a minimum. One is left, so how far in from the left of the slide do you want to come in? Then I need top, how far down from the top do you want this to be? You need an author name as a string, and then you need an author initials as a string as well, and then finally you need your text. Now, really where I should see this is kind of right up here over in the corner. So if I run this, let's see what we get. So I have my little comment, and then I can see that my comment was added to the slide, and then it also contains all the wonderful content that I wanted in there. So obviously there's a lot that you could potentially do with this because, you know, if you think about it, there's now kind of this nice little way where you can interact with PowerPoint and Python all at the same time. So I think that's kind of neat. But at this point, I am going to cut off the video just because we covered all the content, and again, my voice is starting to kind of act up. So if you have any questions at this point, by all means, put them down in the comments below. Anything related to the PowerPoint object model, using it from Python, all that kind of fun stuff, feel free to put it down in the comments below. Otherwise, I think in our next video related to Win32Com, I do have some Win32Com content that is coming because I know it's been kind of asked for. So first I'm going to delete this file because I don't want it anymore. I have shapes. I have links, chart objects. We already did this one. And then I think this was the application object. So there's stuff coming. And then additionally, I think I have some other stuff too with Word. And then this stuff, I mean, this is always different things too. But yeah, and then actually what I'll do too is I'll push all of this so that way, you know, yeah, we don't need that anymore. So yeah, at this point, again, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video.